Hi, this is Roll SK from Bitterroll Goons Gaming, and today we're going to do a tech segment on how to install and configure the Aimtrak Lightgun for retro arcades and MAME emulation. This is the Aimtrak Arcade Lightgun. It works on the same principle as a Wii controller. It's USB compatible. It works with MAME, PS1, PS2 apparently. Compatible with CRT, LCD, and you name it. This is available from ultimark.com. The link is below in the description there. And this is available for about $95 US without the recoil, or $120 US with the recoil. And let's go ahead and open her up and see what that gets you. This particular model is the red model. So it is manufactured in China, as it says on the box. But this is what you get in the package. Let's start with the obvious thing here is the red light gun. So the first thing to point out is this does come with a very heavy cable, which feels quite robust, and I don't think is going to give any problems with longevity in terms of usage for home. It is also marketed as a replacement. They do offer these similar kits for replacement for arcade as well. And it comes with a USB connector and a power connector. This particular kit is the recoil kit, so that's where the power connector comes into it. Just set that aside. And you also get a light bar with double-sided tape on the bottom, and this is very similar to a Wii or Wii U light bar. It's got a couple of infrared LEDs in there that the light gun picks up on. And of course you get a sort of quick start guide for the product. And that's sort of all you get with this, and we will definitely get into some of the setup later on, some games. One thing that, a couple things you're going to want to get. Here we have the holster for the gun, and typically this actually comes with 3 bolts on the bottom, which you would then place on top of your control unit, your arcade machine, and it would sit there for a specific OEM replacement. I, however, have mounted mine on the side of my arcade machine, and the bolts have become redundant, so I have taken them out, and it's just, they're threaded into there. With the wrench you can just spin them out, but you're going to want one of those to hold the gun. It sort of finishes off the thing quite well. One other thing you're going to want to purchase is you're going to want a power supply for the recoil unit if you choose to get one. You're going to want 24 to 36 volts, 2 to 4 amps. And these are available, on Amazon or eBay for the specific pinout, which I believe is 5mm, but information is on the website ultimark.com to set you up with the power supply you require for this. And it was quite readily available, and again, I think it was only $8 or $9 shipped. So I've got a couple of those downstairs ready because I actually have 2 guns for these systems. So part of this is going to be a teardown, and this is a second gun I've gotten for my my arcade system downstairs. But I do have a first gun right here. Now I did have a malfunction with this. The recoil unit malfunctioned and ceased to be working. It seemed to be overheating. I believe it was probably a problem with the MOSFET chip that it came with. However, I have to point out that the Ultimark service that was supplied with this was excellent. They provided complete replacement hardware for this at no cost to myself, and I thought, boy, what a great opportunity to show you what comes within the unit. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up now. And I have to say the construction of the gun itself, like it feels very nice. It's got a good weight to it. It does feel quite good in the hands, and when you're playing arcade games, it feels great. Unfortunately, like I said, this one had a small malfunction, so we're gonna go ahead and open her up right now And I have replacement parts for this that we're going to install right now, and I'll give you an opportunity to show you sort of what you get with this with this light gun. Now I've been into this thing before, because when it malfunctioned, I wondered initially, what the issue was, and it's quite simple inside. There's a IR sensor and a lens, and I'm assuming a power MOSFET controller to power a solenoid, which operates as a recoil mechanism. And we'll show that shortly here. Okay, and I think that should be just about everything. And you can see right away that the button popped out for that. Something to note if you're going to take yours apart. But this is the interior of the light gun. And as you can see, it's quite simple. Now what we have here is a trigger switch with a built-in, I believe, offset power supply, which will trigger the solenoid here. We have an sensor, looks like a pinhole sensor, and I would assume that that's to get direction from the pair of LEDs that come on the light bar here, because there's a pair of infrared LEDs in there. And if you've ever pointed a digital camera at your Wii bar, you would notice a couple of LEDs in there. And something to point out, and I'll just take a look at the replacement to make sure it's similar, is the sensor itself is offset at a very, very slight angle. Not sure if you can pick that out, but you can see that the sensor itself is offset. And that's basically all there is to it. And then there's a pair of micro switches here on a PCB to pick up the additional 2 buttons, side buttons, reload, grenade, whatever you have you. And there's a small microprocessor in there. I'm sure that interprets the signal and spits it out to your standard USB 2.0 configuration. So really not a lot to these, but it is effective. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to remove this hardware and replace it with the replacement that came in the mail. So not too difficult to figure out here. Parts are fairly straightforward. Here's your solenoid, and this is obviously some ferromagnetic material that reacts one way or the other to the solenoid's magnetic pulse. And as that rolls around there, I'm just going to point out here that this is a switch for the trigger, and that then would trigger this power amplifier, which would fire off that solenoid, and that picks up power from this unit here, which then goes down and picks up your 24 to 36 volt unit there. So not sure what the malfunction was with this, but it for some reason would just periodically just go click, 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 and it would not actually click on the trigger pull, which it's supposed to. And the software actually allows you to also modulate how much power you get from that, so we'll demonstrate that when we get to the setup and configuration of it. So let's just go ahead and remove the old and here we have the replacement. So it's basically the exact same components that came with the gun, and we'll just go ahead and pop them in there. Now, conceivably, I can recall how this all went together. Leave that right there. Here's our trigger solenoid. Which I believe goes right here. Yeah, that seems about right. I do note right away that this this little MOSFET transistor is in a slightly different position as the old one. This one has been bent back a bit, though that typically would not affect the function in any way. I'm just noting that perhaps there's been a manufacturing revision or a QA/QC change, and whatever poor Chinese plant manufactured this thing. And I particularly recall the layout of the PCB before I made this, or took this thing apart, so you might want to know which side's up. However, there is a notch there to ensure that you cannot screw that up. Just test, make sure the buttons function properly. Okay, and then we've got to make sure that we have our right routing correctly, and I think that this would actually function better. I'm just going to pull that out and put it over top of these wires so they can run underneath. Yeah, that's a little bit better there. Okay, that seems to fit properly. And then the final thing would be the power cord and the sensor. So that would spin around thusly. Fits into the fitted slots and such, and then I believe it's just sort of woven. And if now that I'm looking at this, it actually it seems to have been pre-bent. I wonder if this did not come out from another unit, but I don't care. If it was tested and it proved to be good, then we have no reason to be concerned about that. With regards to this, I'm going to point the heavier spring side towards the solenoid there, and that does appear to be the right configuration for that position. You could always check the video if it's not, but let's give that a try first. That seems to function. We'll continue following cable through the body of the gun. As you can see, this has clearly been pre-bent and installed on a previous unit because it's being very compliant. But gifts and horses and mouths and such, eh, folks? Never look a gift horse in the mouth if she fits. Just gonna rotate that around so it fits around my grommet a little better. Okay. And there you have it. We have replaced the guts of the unit. If I've done something drastically wrong, just make mention in comments. But next step would be reassembly and testing. There's a commentary from the dogs in the background there. Thank you for the feedback there, Dozer. Appreciate that. Just gonna go ahead and pop that button off and throw it in there thusly. Pop right together, and she does. Feels more or less right. Just gonna make sure nothing looks pinched when I've done that. That concerns me a bit. I'm just gonna move that wire over. I see that they have. There we go. Was a little pinch there. So I would recommend if you're ever doing something like this, you're not really sure, test fit it, put it back together, look if there's any sign of pinching. If not, then you've got it pretty much figured out. There we go. Now that I've moved that wire out of the way, it has gone together much more nicely. And yeah, we're going to proceed with reassembly. Next, we're going to show you one way to mount your holster. And again, if this is a build for perhaps an emulated arcade game with just guns, then you can mount them on top of the arcade machine and replace the old ones. If you're doing a RetroPie build, I think it may be configurable for that. I'm not sure. It does for sure work with PC Run MAME. So we're going to demonstrate that in the next scene here. There we go. One thing to be careful of when you do this, don't over tighten. These are self-tapping screws into the plastic body of the base piece. So you want to be fairly gentle when you sink them to the base there. You're not going to be pistol whipping anybody with this, so there's no need to be overly tight with these, and you don't want to strip them out. Okay, so here you have it. All the buttons feel correct. And next we're going to go ahead and mount the holster and then get into configuration and setup for these two light guns. So drop a box there. Here you have it. Player 1 and player 2. So one moment and we'll get the holster installed. Okay, we're back, and the next thing we're going to do is decide where we're going to put our holster and adhere it to the arcade cabinet. Where you decide to place the holster depends entirely on what type of system you have and what your own personal preference is. The things to keep in mind are what sort of connection you want to have to the arcade machine, whether it's going to be bolted or adhesive. Also, keep the other controls in mind when you place it so that you make sure that where people are standing and things don't interfere with it. As you can see, I've got my first player light gun already in place, and what we're going to do is basically just try to match that. And what you need to do is, first of all, prepare your surfaces. Get a cleaner, we're using Windex in this case, but any sort of non-solvent based, non-residue cleaner will work. You want to clean the surface that you're going to be putting tape on, and also the surface you're going to be sticking it to. If you're going to mount it up here, which is sort of standard for an arcade MAME setup, of course you would have to pre-drill, retain the existing bolts that come with this holster, and then just bolt it in place. However, given the real estate up here and the fact that we've done some nice custom marks, we didn't want to drill through that, so we decided to stick it to the side. So what I'm going to do next is just sort of take my second player light gun and position it more or less where it needs to go to match the existing one. And I think that's pretty close there. Maybe come in a little bit. Elevation's about right. If you want to be real picky, you can get a tape measure out. However, I think we can eyeball this pretty fine. I've already put the tape on the holster here, and the next step is basically just to peel it off and stick it to the arcade cabinet. Now this tape is double-sided, but it can be pulled back off without leaving a residue behind. 3M tape's really good that way if you have decent surfaces you're adhering to. So basically, if it's not quite right, it can be removed and put back in place. But I think the ballpark here is going to be just fine. And we'll use the light guns in the holster itself to make sure that the positioning is pretty much where it needs to be. Just hoping I'm still in frame here as I struggle with tape. There we go, we got her. Okay, good. Place the light gun in place where I think it should go. I'm going to double check a few things. Yeah, I went level on that side. Make sure the positioning height-wise is correct. Depth-wise, it looks about right. Not quite. There we go. Before I finally put it in place, I'm just going to step back and it can maybe come up just a hair. The proper way to do this would be to mark it and measure it. I'm being lazy here. But you know what? That's just about perfect. So that's where we're going to leave it. It's going to adhere in place. It's a little bit of gentle force, Some slight wiggling will help it work its way into the crevices that need to be there. And then the next step would be basically wiring them in. So we are running MAME on a Windows 10 based system with Launchbox. Relatively straightforward and common setup. I have 2 power packs already wired in the back. What we're going to do next is we're just going to go ahead and plug these in. The power is connected on the player 2 controller. I'm going to go ahead and wire in the player 1 controller. And I'm going to go ahead and plug this one in first to the USB port. Anybody who's played with a lot of peripherals in Windows knows how awful it can be to have them set up backwards. I'm just going to run them behind. This is an Arcade cabinet. So the back is open and there's a PC in the back. Okay, there we go. So it's all set and plugged in. The next step will be configuration and setup, and then some gameplay. Okay, we've now installed the light guns. They're plugged in and powered up, and we're going to go ahead and go through the set controls. You can test to see if your gun's working. It should show up as a mouse on the screen. Pull the trigger. That tells us the recoil is working. And now we'll go over the calibration and setup.
Now that we've installed the light guns, we can go through the settings manager. First tab you'll see is configuration, and we'll just go through this quickly. Tilt to Z correction is what allows the light gun to measure itself and its distance from the light bar and account for that distance. I recommend either intelligent or continuous. Recoil is the power of the recoil in the gun. I don't recommend leaving it on the maximum setting, though it is quite powerful. It does potentially burn out your power supply unit. I would recommend it keeping it down in the bottom third, but you can test to feel what works best for you. IR gain is usually automatically set, and that is just a sensitivity to the light bar. And I would, again, just leave that to automatic. However, you can adjust that as you see fit. And button assignments, you can assign the light gun to trigger any button you choose while on screen, and if you choose a separate button off screen as well. Enable calibration. If you would like to recalibrate the gun, you can press and hold the enabled calibration button, the calibration delay time at the bottom. And I would recommend you go ahead and set this around 20 seconds or so, and you will have to recalibrate guns probably for every game, as the frame of the picture may change and it is affected. You can emulate joystick or mouse depending on what's your preference, and we have it set up to emulate the mouse. Center view check is fairly straightforward. You point the gun at the screen and this will sort of give you an image of what the gun sees. Now under setup, this is what allows you to upgrade the firmware of the gun if you choose to. I do have some advice. If you have more than one gun, you will have to separately set the ID of each gun to 1 and 2. The way you want to do that is to first of all plug in your first gun and come to this setup and set ID to 1. Apply the changes. Once that's complete, unplug that gun, plug in the second gun, and set that ID to 2. And then from that point on, you will be able to configure the devices separately. And show data is just a real-time display of what the software is seeing from the gun. So with that, I'll demonstrate some of the calibration, and we'll get into a game.
Okay, so now the gun is at the screen. I'm going to press and hold the trigger for, well, just for the sake of use, I'm going to turn it down to 5 seconds. Now I just point at the screen and I press and hold the trigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's going to go to the top left, aim at it, pull the trigger, goes to the top right, aim at it, pull the trigger, goes down to the middle, pull the trigger. Let me take a couple of tries. If the gun Doesn't quite see what it's looking for, but now we've got her calibrated. And that's sort of what you're looking for. And it does seem a little bit choppy. That's probably perfectly normal. I'm just going to try to calibrate it again a little bit closer to the screen and see if that helps. There we go. So you might want to mess with the position of your light bar just to try to get that right where you're happy with it. But that's basically the calibration setup. Now, sensor view check. Pretty straightforward. This just indicates, you know, what the sensor can see, and indicates that you can in fact see it with the light gun. Red indicates good, yellow good but faint. Device ID, if you have multiple IDs, you can potentially go ahead and change those to whatever ID you would like. And showing data, this is just a screen demonstrating, you know, the raw data. So now that we've gone through the calibration and configuration, let's go ahead and get into a game. So we're going to go ahead and launch Big Box here. One moment here. If you can believe it, it's decided to go ahead and output the sound through my microphone. So we're going to change that back to the actual speakers that are set up in the thing. There we go, set as a twice. Great. Now let's try that again. We're going to open up Big Box, and we'll try ourselves an arcade game.
Initializing Big Box.
There, good old Operation Wolf. So this is a good opportunity to demonstrate how you set up the light gun. I'm going to go ahead and open the main menu, go to input this screen, and we're just going to go through the controls. Player button 1, player button 2. Now this is a tricky part, the analog X and Y. And it's tricky because if it detects any up and down movement, it will register that as well. So we're going to go ahead and select that. We'll just go to the left and see, there you go. It detected both. So I'm going to clear that off by hitting escape, and we'll try again. Okay, and I'm going to try Y. Go to Y. Oh, okay, it's got it backwards here. So we'll clear that one off. Try it again. The nice thing is once these are set up, you don't really have to set them up again. Nope. Not quite right again. It is not wanting to pick up that X. Oh, it did pick up the X, but it picked up both. Come on, little guy. There we go, we got it, gun 2X. And the rest you can leave pretty much same as you would normally. And just for kicks there, I'm just going to calibrate real quick. It's a good idea to calibrate when you start a new game.
Operation Wolf.
Because the screen extents will likely change depending on what game you play. Okay, so we're good to go.
Operation initiated.
Operation initiated, so Operation Wolf. There we go. Looks like a dam. Anyway, that's an Aimtrak light gun. Feel free to go and purchase your own, install it as you like, and I personally love them. Great for two-player games. There's lots of good emulated shooter games out there, and I hope you liked the vid. If you do, go ahead and subscribe and share, and make sure you check out our next gaming stream.